Claire thought she had married her best friend. At 22, standing in that small chapel with white carnations and 40 witnesses, she believed Thomas when he whispered that they would build something beautiful together. She believed him when he said she would never walk alone. She wore a simple dress her aunt had sewn, and when Thomas slipped the ring onto her finger, Claire felt like the luckiest woman in Ohio. The first years were hard, but Claire never complained. Thomas opened a hardware store in their hometown of Marion, a quiet place where everyone knew everyone. In the beginning, customers were scarce. The bills stacked up faster than the sales. Thomas would stay late at the empty store, staring at the unsold inventory, and Claire would find him there past midnight, his head in his hands. So Claire took a job at the local bakery, waking at 4 in the morning to knead dough and frost cakes. After her shift ended at 2, she would walk straight to the hardware store and work the register until closing. She organized shelves, learned the difference between lag bolts and carriage bolts, memorized paint codes, and smiled at every customer who walked through the door. Thomas focused on suppliers and expansion plans, while Claire kept the daily operation running. Slowly, the store began to grow. First came the regulars, then the contractors, then a steady flow of weekend DIY customers. Within 5 years, Thomas opened a second location in the next town over. Money started coming in, real money, and with it came changes Claire did not expect. Thomas started coming home later. He bought expensive watches and cologne she did not recognize. He took phone calls in the other room and closed the door. When Claire asked about his day, he gave shorter answers. When she suggested they take a weekend trip like they used to, he said he was too busy. Claire told herself it was the stress of managing 2 stores, but at night, lying next to him in the dark, she felt him drifting farther away. One afternoon, Claire was restocking paintbrushes when she overheard 2 customers talking near the register. One woman, Mrs. Patterson from Elm Street, said she had seen Thomas at Marcello's, the upscale Italian restaurant downtown, having dinner with a young woman in a red dress. The other woman leaned closer and whispered that the woman looked expensive, like she belonged in a magazine, and that Thomas had been laughing in a way she had not seen him laugh in years. Mrs. Patterson paused, then added that they had been holding hands across the table. Claire's hands froze mid-reach. A paintbrush clattered to the floor. Both women turned toward the sound. Claire bent to pick it up, her face burning, and kept stacking brushes with mechanical precision, pretending she had not heard a word. Mrs. Patterson cleared her throat and quickly changed the subject to the weather. They paid for their items and left without making eye contact with Claire. Her chest felt tight, and the words replayed in her mind like a recording she could not stop. She counted the brushes 3 times and got a different number each time. A customer asked her a question about primer, and she had to ask him to repeat it twice. When her shift ended at 6, Claire excused herself to the back room, sat on a crate of tile samples, and stared at the concrete wall. She told herself there had to be an explanation. Thomas would never do that. Not to her, not after everything they had built together. She thought about calling him right then, confronting him, demanding the truth. But her hands would not move toward her phone. Some part of her already knew, some part of her had known for weeks. Doubt had planted itself, and it was growing roots. That night, Thomas came home just before midnight. Claire was sitting on the couch, still dressed, still awake. She asked him where he had been. Thomas sighed and said he had been working late on inventory. His voice was flat, irritated. He told her she was starting to sound paranoid, and that if she kept it up, she would push him away. Claire said nothing. She went upstairs and lay in bed, staring at the ceiling, feeling something inside her crack. A week later, Thomas left his phone on the kitchen counter while he was in the shower. Claire was washing dishes when the screen lit up with a notification. She had never gone through his things, Not once in 7 years of marriage. She believed privacy was sacred, that trust meant not needing to check. But this time, her hand reached for the phone before her mind could stop it. The message preview sat there, glowing. "Miss you already. Can't wait for tonight. Same place." The contact name was saved as Jessica. Claire's breath caught. She scrolled up with trembling fingers. There were dozens of messages, weeks of them. Good morning texts, inside jokes, dinner plans at restaurants she had never been to. A photo of a hotel room with the caption, "Our place." Another message from 3 days ago. "Your wife suspects anything?" Thomas had replied, "No, she's clueless. Too busy with her little bakery job." Claire felt the room tilt. Her vision blurred at the edges. She set the phone down carefully, exactly where it had been, the screen facing the same direction. She walked to the living room, sat on the couch, and pressed her palms against her thighs to stop them from shaking. The water was still running upstairs. She could hear Thomas singing off-key, the same song he used to sing to her on Sunday mornings. That memory felt like it belonged to someone else now. Upstairs, she heard the shower turn off. She heard Thomas humming. When he came downstairs, still damp, toweling his hair, he smiled at her and asked what was for dinner. Claire looked at him and saw a stranger. A man who could lie with a smile. A man who had been lying for months. A man who called her clueless. She told him she was not hungry. Thomas shrugged, grabbed his phone without a glance, scrolled through it while standing right in front of her, then ordered takeout. He ate on the couch watching a basketball game. Claire went upstairs and lay in bed fully clothed. That night, when Thomas finally came to bed, Claire lay beside him in the dark, listening to him breathe, and realized she had already lost him. She just had not admitted it yet. That evening, Thomas said he had a meeting with a supplier. He kissed her on the forehead, grabbed his keys, and left. Claire waited 5 minutes, then put on her jacket and followed him. She drove 3 cars behind, her heart pounding so hard she thought she might pass out. Thomas pulled into the parking lot of Marcello's. Claire parked across the street and watched him walk inside. She sat in her car for 10 minutes, gripping the steering wheel, trying to decide if she should go in. Finally, she opened the door and walked across the street. Inside the restaurant, soft music played and candles flickered on white tablecloths. Claire scanned the room, and then she saw them. Thomas was sitting by the window with a woman in her late 20s. Blonde hair pulled back, wearing a black dress that probably cost more than Claire made in a month. They were laughing. Thomas reached across the table and held her hand. Then the woman leaned forward and kissed him. Claire turned and walked out before anyone could see her. She made it to her car, locked the doors, and sobbed until her throat was raw. For the next 3 days, Claire moved through her life like a ghost. She went to work at the bakery, kneading dough with mechanical precision, her hands moving but her mind somewhere else. She came home, cooked dinner, set the table, and said nothing. Thomas ate quickly, scrolling through his phone, and did not ask why she was so quiet. He did not ask if she was okay. He did not seem to notice that his wife was disappearing right in front of him. On the 4th day, he came home in the middle of the afternoon, earlier than usual, and said they needed to talk. Claire was folding laundry in the living room. She set down the towel she was holding, walked to the kitchen table, and sat. Her hands were folded in her lap. Her back was straight. She already knew what was coming. Thomas sat across from her. He did not look nervous. He looked relieved, like he had been waiting for permission to say this out loud. He said he had met someone else. He said he had not planned for it to happen, but it had, and he could not ignore his feelings anymore. He said it would not be fair to either of them to keep pretending. Then he said the words that would echo in Claire's mind for years, the words that would fuel every decision she made after that moment. He said Claire was too simple for the life he wanted now. He said, while he had been growing, expanding, building something bigger, She had stayed stuck in the same small-town routines, the same predictable patterns. He said he needed someone who could keep up with him, someone who understood ambition, someone who fit the image of success he was creating. He said Jessica understood him in ways Claire never could. Claire sat perfectly still. She did not cry. She did not beg. She did not ask him to reconsider. She looked at the man she had loved since she was 22, the man she had sacrificed her sleep and her savings for, and she felt something inside her turn to stone. She asked him, in a voice that did not shake, to leave. Thomas stood, hesitated for a moment, as if expecting her to break down, then walked out. The door closed quietly behind him. Claire sat alone at the kitchen table for 2 hours, staring at the wall, and made a decision. She would never let anyone make her feel small again. Claire stared at him. She did not cry. She did not scream. She just asked him to leave. Thomas moved out that weekend. A month later, he filed for divorce. 2 months after that, he brought Jessica to the hardware store and introduced her to the staff as his partner. People in town started talking. Some looked at Claire with pity. Others avoided her altogether. Claire became the woman whose husband left her for someone younger, someone better. But something else was happening inside Claire, something quiet and fierce. She decided she would never let anyone make her feel small again. She sold her share of the house, packed her things, and moved to Columbus. She took a job as an assistant manager at a home goods store. She worked 60-hour weeks. She took night classes in business management. She studied supply chains, customer retention, marketing strategies. She saved every dollar she could. 3 years later, Claire opened her own store, a boutique home decor shop in a trendy neighborhood. She focused on quality, on design, on customer experience. The store became popular. Within 2 years, she opened a second location, then a third, then a fourth. She built relationships with suppliers, hired smart people, and reinvested every profit. By year 7, Claire owned a small chain of upscale home decor stores across Ohio and Indiana. Her company, Evergreen Interiors, was featured in regional business magazines. People started recognizing her name. Meanwhile, Thomas's life was falling apart. He had expanded too fast, taken bad loans, trusted the wrong partners. Jessica left him when the money ran out. The hardware stores started losing customers. Vendors stopped extending credit. By the time Thomas realized how deep the trouble was, it was too late. He was drowning in debt. One day, Thomas received a call from a representative of a regional investment group. They were interested in acquiring struggling retail businesses, restructuring them, and offering the original owners a clean exit. Thomas was desperate. He agreed to a meeting. The representative told him the CEO would be present to finalize the deal. Thomas showed up at the downtown office building in a suit he had not worn in months. He took the elevator to the 12th floor and was led into a glass conference room with a long table and a view of the city. He sat down and waited. The door opened, and a woman walked in, tall, confident, wearing a tailored navy suit. Her hair was different, shorter and styled. Her posture was different, stronger, but Thomas recognized her immediately. It was Claire. She sat down across from him, folded her hands on the table, and smiled. Not a warm smile, not a cruel smile, just a smile that said she knew exactly who she was and what she was worth. "Hello, Thomas," she said. "It's been a long time." Thomas could not speak. His mouth opened, but no words came out. Claire opened a folder and slid a document across the table. She explained the terms calmly, professionally. Evergreen Interiors would purchase his stores, assume his debts, and restructure the operations. Thomas would receive enough money to cover what he owed and walk away, but he would have no ownership, no control, and no future involvement. Thomas stared at the paper. His hands were shaking. He signed. Before he stood to leave, he looked at Claire and asked, "Why?" Claire leaned back in her chair. "Because you once told me I was too simple for the life you wanted. I just wanted to show you that you were wrong." Thomas left the building and stood on the sidewalk, watching the traffic go by. He had nothing left. No business, no wife, no future he recognized. Inside the conference room, Claire stayed seated, looking out at the city. She felt no anger. She felt no bitterness. She felt peace. She had not set out to destroy him. She had set out to become someone no one could ever diminish again, and she had succeeded. Claire closed the folder, stood, and walked to the window. She thought about the young woman who had believed in love, who had worked herself to exhaustion for someone else's dream, who had been told she was not enough. That woman was gone. In her place stood someone stronger, someone who had turned pain into power. Thomas had taught her one thing, though he never meant to. He taught her that the best response to being underestimated is not revenge. It is becoming undeniable. Claire left the office and stepped into the elevator. The doors closed and she smiled, not because she had won, but because she had finally become the person she was always meant to be. Someone who would never again let anyone tell her she was not enough. If this story made you feel something, there is another one waiting for you right after this.